Hey students, I hope you're doing well and having a great week. This week, so let's kind of recap where we are. You have turned in your annotated bibliographies and I'm in the process of grading those. I'm hoping to be done by this Friday, maybe even a little earlier. I want to make sure that I'm intentional with your introductions. And so I'm going to get those done by Monday or Tuesday. But your annotated bibs, it just takes a while because I have to look them up, make sure you included everything. And it's just very tedious. So thanks for your patience. Hopefully those will be done by Friday. And then I'm hoping to have your introductions back to you quickly so that you can kind of know that you're on the right track of where we're headed with this essay. This week, we are really focusing on the problem component. And if you remember when we talked about this essay at the beginning, there are two sections of this paper. There's the problem section, and then there's the solution section. So this week is going to be largely focused on the problem. So a few areas of concern that I had after reading your outlines, and some of you submitted a new one, and I give you some feedback to that, that I really want to go over as we're starting to tackle the drafting portion of this paper. First of all, I want to talk about the thesis. The thesis must be clear. Some of you are wanting to include only the problem, and some of you are wanting to include only the solution. And the thesis statement can be 1 to 2 sentences, but it must have both. You do need to make sure that you're very clear about the specific problem you're addressing and the specific solution. In light of that, some of you are still really having a hard time really homing in and focusing on a specific area. Some of you are trying to attack a multitude of problems, and then others are trying to unpack multiple solutions. And here's where that gets really tricky. When you are trying to prove a problem exists, if you're trying to prove that a multitude of problems exist, there's no way to organize that. You're going to be going back and forth in between your problems, and nothing's going to have a real streamlined focus. And that's the same issue with your solution. Some of you are trying to educate. You want to educate, you want to create a program, you want to change a law, and there's just no way to really do an essay well if you're trying to unpack all of those things. So make sure that you're reviewing the feedback on your outlines. Go back and ask yourself, okay, I had 3 solutions. Which one could I really unpack and do a really, really good job of ensuring that I've hit all the important parts? So really focus on that as you're navigating your thesis statement. And then especially this week as we're unpacking your problem, make sure your problem is focused and narrow, and make sure that you are organized and only staying on that one topic. Vague language. A lot of you are using, I call them cuss words in my English 111 class. And those are words like things, it, those, they're vague words, and they're words that the reader is often questioning, well, what did they mean by that? Or what were they talking about there? So what I want you to do is really go through your sentences and check over and make sure you're clear. Make sure that you're exchanging some of those vague words for nouns or for specific ideas. One tip that I like to give students is you have a search bar in Word, and you can search for some of those vague words like things or this or that or those. And it helps you track them and change them because it's so easy to type it out and not realize what you're doing. The last thing I want to talk to you about is opinionated language. So clearly we have an opinion, right? We're writing this essay. We have an opinion about this problem in our work field or our job and how we're going to solve it. However, what we have to recognize is that when we say things like, I think, or I believe, we are automatically shutting the reader down. Think about it this way. When you were a kid and your parents were always trying to give you advice, okay? Or maybe you're in high school right now and your parents are still trying to give you advice. Maybe you're an adult and your parents are still trying to give you advice. When they would come to you and they would say, you need to do this. I think this. I believe this. How did that go over with you? Probably not really well. And so I want you to think about that in your own writing. Let me just give you this example. If I were to come to you and say, I think that taking research writing is the most important class you'll ever have in college. It's going to be hard for you to listen to that, right? Because I'm an English teacher. Clearly, that's important to me. And I used those words, I think. But what if I came back to you and I addressed it this way instead? What if I said, English 112 is essential for a student's learning because they need to know how to research, how to make sure that research is valid, and how to apply that research to their lives. All of a sudden, what I've done is I've just taken myself out of it. It's no longer my ideas. I'm only talking about the topic. So I want you to be really careful of that. Avoid I think, avoid I know, avoid in my opinion. Scratch that and really try to write in third person only. We want to avoid words like I, me, myself, you, your. I tell students that gets preachy when we say you should think or you should believe. And we just want to be very non-emotional and really attach the reader to the work and to the research and to the academic tone in our writing. So what are we going to be doing this week? This week, we're going to be working on the body paragraph, specifically your problem section. Guys, it's really important for you to refer to your outline. And I'm actually going to share my screen and pull this up real quick. So this is really the area that we are going to be focusing on, the causes of the problem. I want you to keep something in mind. These are ways that you can organize your paragraphs. It would be great to have a discussion of significant causes of the problem. It would be great to show who is benefiting from the situation, because what those topics are doing is it's proving that this is in fact a real problem. However, I don't want you to be so bound to this that you don't come up with your own ideas. So if you see another paragraph that you want to put in, or if there's another thing that would fit into this mold that's really important to you, or that you think is going to ground your research, by all means, please do that. Don't feel that you are so bound to these questions that you can't get creative. There are many ways to argue. There are many points to argue. The issue is you have to stay organized in that thought process. So that's why I create this, is to help you stay organized, but not to bind you to a very, very, very ABC way of writing this essay. So to get back to our PowerPoint, remember that you're trying to prove your point before you get into the solution. I find that a lot of students, when they're writing the problem component, they want to start talking about the solution, and this is not the place for it. You have to remember that you are talking to an audience that might not buy into the fact that this is an issue. Before trying to tell someone to recycle, you need to prove to them why that's a problem and waste is an issue in the first place. So remember, totally focus and zone in on your problem, and then we'll address the solution. And it just proves the point. There is no need for a solution if there isn't a proven problem. So for the discussion board this week, you're going to draft up the problem section of your paper. You're going to work on a response to CourseMate that's due Sunday. The problem draft is going to be due Wednesday. And then there's going to be some guided questions to help you really facilitate that discussion with your course mates. One thing that I want to talk about is the language that we use when we're offering feedback. Consider telling your writer to please consider the following ideas, or you have done an amazing job in ABC, but here are a few things that I want you to think about. Be encouraging to your writing community. Remember that research writing is really, really difficult and hard. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing a really good job of encouraging our classmates in this process. If you have any questions about how to create a body paragraph, I'm going to be linking the YouTube of the different paragraphs that go into a research paper that we went over. It was either last week or the week before. And I'll link that PowerPoint to this week's lecture so that you can review that on your own time if that's something that you need to do. I'm really excited to continue reading. Please make sure that you're getting on Blackboard and really looking at my feedback. This is a really important part of the process, is receiving feedback, reading it critically, and applying it to your work. Let's make it another great week, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions.